Okay, so now that we know the history of the HMS Nelson, what does she look like in game? And first of all, I can tell you that if you do end up deciding to purchase this ship in the store, I will tell you that she is, for the most part, I would say very much worth the money if you consistently play this game. Especially if you like British battleships. If you've been grinding the British battleships and you're like on the Queen Elizabeth or King George right now, you will just absolutely adore this ship and also hate it at the same time, which we will get to in a minute. Um, there's a couple reasons why people buy into the HMS Nelson, and I'll really kind of highlight the two if you don't already know. There's two really obvious ones that I'll highlight here in a sec. In terms of modifications, running aiming systems to improve dispersion. I'm doing the damage control system, and I'll talk about that why also later. You could make an argument to run either of these two are also acceptable choices. There's really no wrong answer between the three of these. And then concealment system, which is slightly better detectability range. Although to be honest, I don't really know why it matters that much because it's a battleship. So you could run, target acquisition. I just felt like slapping this on there for some reason. I don't know why. Also keep in mind that the stats that you will see are with no commanders. Unlike my North Carolina video, I forgot to take off my William Sims, so that was a little bit of inaccurate information because you get, boosted stats when you add that commander, especially a high commander. I have Sims pretty high, so it was pretty a little bit inaccurate in some places, but generally still the same experience that you'll get even with or without a commander. But just keep in mind, I don't have like any commanders on Nelson right now going into the stats. The first thing that I will cover, the first reason that people buy into the HMS Nelson is because of this thing. Now, it's a repair party. It's not doesn't look any different than any of the other ships. But if you notice the HP per second, it's 1,187 HP per second, with a 20-second consumable duration. It is, playing the Nelson, it is absolutely stupid how much health you can regain from this. It is basically half your health. If you pull out your calculator, I'll pull out my calculator right now. I'll plug in 1187 per second for 20 seconds is 23,000 health. So you can, if you are smart about using this regen, you can basically heal half of your health in one consumable regen, which is absolutely stupid. There is no other ship that has this type of regen in the game. Nelson wins the category for the best regen healing in the game, period. It is unrivaled. There's no other ship that really rivals it. You can maybe make a case for the Conqueror or Vanguard, but if you use this smartly, it's not even a competition. To put that in perspective, the average HP per second is, I think, like, depending on the ship, I think it's like 300, 200, 300, something like that. So you're getting a lot more, almost, I think it's might be 200. So you're getting about 5 times more HP per second than the average heal in the game. And you'll see this heal being used in the gameplay. I specifically recorded a video just to show you guys. It literally increases your entire health bar by half. So just keep that in mind. It's absolutely stupid. That's one reason that the people buy into the HMS Nelson, is that it has the most survivable best healing capabilities in the game. Um, that being said, moving on to stats. So survivability, you have 59,000 hit points, which is a little bit below average for the tier. But again, you could make the argument. I'm going to make this argument a lot. With 59,000 is a little bit below average, but when you have that heal, it's really not, because that heal is just so broken that it's almost just doesn't matter how much hit points you have. You're gonna, when you pop that heal, when you're half your health is down, it almost really doesn't matter how much hit points you feel like. And I felt that a lot in this ship as I played it. It doesn't really matter how much hit points you have because of that heal. But just know that the base heal is slightly below average, not too much, about 1,000 or 2,000 below average. Armor we'll get to later. Torpedo or damage reduction, I will say that is I think the worst I've seen on a battleship like ever. I'd really have to think about it, but I'm pretty sure there's nothing lower than 19%. That is awful. So you basically get no protection from really any sort of torpedoes, especially the absolutely lethal Japanese, and the Pan-Asian deep water ones are also really lethal as well. So you are very susceptible in the ship to torpedoes because you're slow. And you're a pretty broad target to hit. So keep that in mind. Everyone's favorite part about the ship is obviously the guns. So for your main battery, you have 3 turrets of 3 guns, each of 16-inch guns. They have a firing range of 16 kilometers, which is average. You're not going to beat the Americans or the Japanese. Especially if you have someone building into like Takagi or something like that. But it's still better than the French's Lyon or the Russians Sinop or Sinop, however you like to pronounce it. So considering range, it's pretty average. Reload time at 30 seconds. It's not terribly good. But it's still better than, believe it or not, some American battleships. And if you play the British battleships, you're likely used to the reload time, depending on what commander you have, somewhere in the high 20s or 30-second range. Keep in mind that the turret traverse, 180-degree turn time, is awful. It's 45 seconds. It's really slow, so that's really bad. And I honestly do feel that Nelson does not do well in close quarters combat, especially against destroyers or light cruisers, just because it's number one, pretty slow, and number two, that it takes forever for your guns to get around, and it is kind of a noticeable struggle. You will tend to sometimes struggle to get your guns around on target. I will say that the accuracy of the guns is it's actually pretty good, even if you don't build into it. You don't really need to build into Nelson. You can build into Nelson's accuracy, but you don't really need to. It's fairly accurate without any boost from a commander or inspiration from a commander or things like that. It's fairly accurate. You get a lot of vertical grouping. I feel like a couple more vertical grouping shots than horizontal. The HE shell damage is 6,900. Now this is the best HE shell damage for a tier 6 battleship in the game, and if you've played British battleships, that's not really a surprise to you, considering that they are the best HE battleships, best line of HE battleships all the way down in the game. There's only one ship that has anywhere close to the HE damage that you do, besides British, which is The Nagato, which I, never would have figured, but I was looking at the stats earlier, and Nagato, I believe, has 6,800 HE shell damage, which never would have really guessed that, but that's just the way it is. But regardless, you do have the best HE shell damage, pretty much of the tier. No one outclasses your HE shells. And I will say that the damage on the HE shells are no slouch either. I mean, I've gotten, shots, plenty of shots in the Nelson where it's been like 9,000, 10,000 damage just from HE, and not even shooting like their broadside or anything, just shooting their superstructure. So keep that in mind. The HE does actually really hurt in and by itself. But the second reason that people buy into the HMS Nelson is that they see the fire chances. The fire setting chances are the second best in the game. In the entire game, Nelson has the second best. I believe it's the Conqueror who has the best HE chance. I think it's 48% with the Conqueror, but I'll double check. 46% chance is utterly stupid. That's super high, and that's super prone to catch fires on other ships. If you think about it, that's basically almost 50% of the time you're gonna get a fire on an enemy ship, which is really, really high. So if you have one of those set fires challenges on the battle pass, Nelson is a superb pick. It does have a 30-second reload time, so you can't get too many fires on ships at a time. But what the Nelson does a really good job of is, because that fire chance is so stupidly high, it does tend to burn out people's damage cons really, really quick, whether that be with 1, 2, or 3 fires, and that leaves people vulnerable to, your HE cruisers if they start spamming the same guy, or if your destroyers come in with a, swarm of torpedoes and starts flooding. So Nelson in this regard is really, really good for just eating damage cons, and that's honestly really kind of what the ship is famous for, is its HE. Just both in damage and fire setting chances are pretty much unrivaled. The King George, I think, probably comes close, but yeah, you won't get very far without being set on fire if you are looked at in this ship. That being said, that the AP shell damage is actually, it's pretty good. It's not. I think a lot of people they get the Nelson and they immediately think that they only have to play HE, which is, I would say, for the most part, you will probably play HE. That's what the ship strength is. That's what it's known for, what it's famous for. But if you happen to catch a broadside cruiser or battleship, completely full on broadside, and you load your AP and fire, and you get decent, assuming the game actually likes you that day, and you get decent hits and good RNG, you will do some pretty significant damage. You will do some pretty decent blows and chunks of damage to battleships. I've kind of found it hard to Citadel people with the shells. I don't know if that's just my luck or the game. I'm not sure if what one that is, but they do pack a punch. They are good, and I've even caught some people at, even if they're angled the right way, and that they have like a weaker armor scheme than you, definitely don't hesitate to pull that AP shell out. I think a lot of people just don't play the AP on the Nelson, and it's pretty underrated because of the HE, exists with that 46% chance of fire. But the AP isn't bad, so just keep that in mind. I'm gonna skip the secondaries because you don't really use them that much. They're okay. They're not really good. They're not really bad. They're kind of in the middle of the pack. AA defense is not good, not that good, honestly. It's honestly kind of a disappointment for British battleship players. There's a number of British battleships with, King George included, and I believe, I think the Duke of York is better, and I don't know about the Hood. I want to say the Hood, but I'm not sure. But um, yeah, the Nelson's AA defense is just not good. You get the 20 millimeter Oerlikons, which are the same guns, 20 millimeters on the American battleships and cruisers and destroy. They pretty much put the Oerlikons on everything. The 40 millimeter Vickers, you have um, 40. Sorry, I can't do math. You have 48 of those. Um, And those are okay. Those are your kind of more longer reaching guns. And then your 120 millimeter secondaries also act as a defense as well. But you will get pestered a lot by carriers, which is not the best in the world. But when you have a 23,000 health regen, you have to ask yourself, does it really matter? And the answer is probably no. If you're somewhat, good at evading their bombs or torpedoes, even if you just evade a couple of them, you'll be fine with that regen in place. Maneuverability, the Nelson, she was built in the 1920s, so she is really slow. She is very slow, 24 knots, which by American standards is actually pretty fast, but a little bit below average for the King George, and even really the I was gonna say Queen Elizabeth and Warspite, but I don't think that they're actually faster than that. So, but not the fastest ship. Definitely not the fastest at tier 6. Turning circle radius is actually that's actually pretty decent. You can make pretty good turns evading torpedoes, which I'll showcase in a clip. So you are decent at evading torpedoes from a head-on, bow-on perspective. But not when when those torps catch you, even the slightest angle of broadside, you probably won't maneuver out of the way. In other words, you're maneuverable, but not that maneuverable. The motor shift time is not the best. It's about 1.5 to 2 seconds above what it should be. So yeah, you won't be able to change direction terribly well in this ship. And concealment is 12.5, which I'm not even really going to talk about it because it's a battleship, and honestly, why does it even really matter except in early game? So if you want concealment, you can compare it yourself, but I'm not going to do that. In terms of armor on this thing, so with a gun scheme like this, where you have all 3 guns facing forward on the bow, Nelson players tend to want to go bow on, straight, front, like a frontal assault towards other ships, which is a natural human instinct because, why would you go broadside if all your guns are in the front? But I will say is that this 25 millimeter bow that you have, it is not really reliable armor at all. Pretty much anything 15-inch or greater will just go right through and penetrate your citadel. So don't go bow on to people. Just don't do it. It's not a good idea. You will get slapped through the bow, and you'll be surprised, but that's just, yeah, it's not a good bow. So don't go bow on. Try and angle yourself. What you really want to get them to shoot, similar to the North Carolina, is that yellow armor belt. You kind of want to come in like an angle like this, so you want to make them shoot the area kind of that starts below the second turret, but you need to get the angle just right. If you get the angle just right, you'll have no problem bouncing shells. I've bounced plenty of shells from battleships and cruisers alike in this thing if you angle correctly. So it's not. That's really the only good part about Nelson's armor is that armor belt. That's the 29mm armor belt. You can deflect shells pretty easily from there. I will say to you right now, if you play this ship regularly, if you're thinking about getting this, if it's your first game out in it and you don't know any better, please do not go broadside, because this ship's citadel is honestly probably the worst citadel I've like. Look at how raised that is above the waterline. That's almost like a quarter almost of the citadel raised above the waterline. That is like the most vulnerable, exposed, worst positioned citadel that I've ever seen. So please, if you go broadside in Nelson, if you are caught broadside on your flanks and you don't react quickly and you don't have map awareness of as to what's going on, you will get severely punished. You will probably get, I would say, at least 20,000 damage taken off of you, if not more. I've had plenty of hits that I've taken in this thing, and it is gross how much health is taken away from you if you're caught broadside. And most Nelson players aren't stupid enough to go broadside anyways, because all their guns are in the front. But just know that if you are trying to angle and you go too far, that tends to get a citadel, or at least good damage, good penetrations into your belt armor. A lot of people tend to overextend their angle with this ship just because they want to get that third gun. You can see that third gun right there. They want to get the third gun into action, which is understandable. You want to bring to bear all of your firepower at the enemy. But if it's risking your ship's livelihood, don't do it. That's pretty much the armor. I mean, overall, I would say the Nelson's armor is like a 2 out of 10. It's not very good. The bow isn't good. The citadel is like the worst armor, or the most vulnerable citadel in the game that I've seen personally. Maybe, I know I've yet to play the Russian battleships, so I can't really say the worst in the game, but I can tell you definitely one of the worst. So yeah, Nelson's armor is not too good. But once again, if you can argue that the armor isn't good and you're gonna get punched left and right because the armor sucks. That is true, but some people would argue that you do have the regen, which is also true, and that can heal a decent amount of your health. But just keep in mind the armor not that good. In terms of like the loadout I do, the only one that you actually can take is the secondary battery targeting, which I almost never use on this ship. The secondary batteries they're pretty much all in the back. You can see there's all the 120 millimeters in the back there. So unless like a cruiser destroyer like pops out behind you, mostly not going to really do damage from the secondaries, considering that you pretty much go straight head on into your enemy. So yeah, I mean, this is really not the most useful thing. So how do you play the Nelson in game? And I will say that I think from a team support aspect, you should try and make this ship more or as survivable as possible, which is why I put the damage control party on there, because your healing ability is so good. Nelson can really be the ship on your team that can take the damage that nobody else can. And I've over and over and over again when I've played this ship, when I first started playing it, I realized that I was winning battles not because I was dishing out the most damage, or the most, you know, huge damaging shots, but it was just simply the fact that I was surviving longer than the other ship. And that's what the Nelson is really good at. It's really durable, most durable ship for its tier for sure. So you will, if you play it smart, you will not die easy in this ship. And so you can really be a quote-unquote damage sponge for the rest of your team. You can have all of the enemies shoot at you while your teammates push forward and do what needs to get done in that match, whether it be cap zones or maybe kill a destroyer over there or focus on a HE spamming cruiser, whatever it may be. You can take the attention, you can take the damage that nobody else on your team really can. That being said, Nelson it's not a foolproof ship. If you over angle or you go broadside or bow in, especially broadside in this thing, you will die very, very, very quickly, and you will not really be long for this world at all. So keep that in mind, especially when trying to get that third gun in there, that third rear gun. It's okay to get it into combat, but just make sure that you don't overextend yourself and just completely cripple your ship. But yeah, I think the overpowered heal combined with the Nelson's HE shells are again fantastic. The 46% is the second best in the whole game. That is astonishingly good. I think that its survivability combined with the HE shell chance to set fires, but also the HE shell damage is also really good, and you get decent AP. So all that's good. The speed, it's kind of lacking, and maneuverability is okay. You can turn pretty well, but yeah, your speed lets you down a lot. You are vulnerable to carriers, which is a little bit unfortunate in a ship like this. In Nelson, you'd expect the British to have really good at AA, but this ship, because I think just because it's older, their logic is that it just doesn't have as good as anti-aircraft abilities as the rest of her British counterparts. In terms of commanders, like what you want to build into, I usually take out Madden. Madden is the survivability commander. He's the one that makes your damage control more efficient, and just overall increases your survivability in general. So if you want to play Nelson with the mindset of really kind of taking one for the team and soaking up all that damage, because you can with that heal, and because you're since you're always bow in, you're less vulnerable to attack. A lot of people tend to run Madden just because he's more survivable, and they just want to make the ship as survivable as possible, which is me included. I run Madden. But Cunningham isn't bad either if you kind of want to be more on the putting out damage side, if you're grinding the ship for like credits, if you have premium time, which is what I've been doing over the past couple days. But I've been broke again because I bought the Leon, trying that ship out again. But anyways, Cunningham works just fine. He's gonna improve your accuracy, and he's basically just accuracy and damage and range is pretty much what Cunningham is. I will say that if you run Madden, the range significantly decreases, so keep that in mind. If having short range really bothers you, then don't run Madden, because I think it's like 14.6 kilometers and it's a 16 kilometer range overall. So kind of leaving want in the range department. But yeah, and Nelson is a great ship to grind credits on as well. It's right in that tier 6 sweet spot where tiers 5 and 6 are the most efficient areas of the game if you're grinding for credits or XP, global XP or that sort of thing. Tier 6 is probably the best tier to do it in. So overall, I'd say that HMS Nelson, if you like British battleships, if you are a fan of any British battleship, or if you are a fan of just setting people on fire, I guess, with if you're a Russian cruiser player or an American light cruiser player, you are going to fall in love with this ship. You're going to pretty much forget about all of its shortcomings. If you are like me and you like more of the American hard-hitting AP battleships, like the American and Japanese ones, then might not be the ship for you. I will say, is it because of its fire setting chances? Is it foolproof? It's a little bit foolproof. It's pretty easy to get a consistent amount of damage in this thing, just letting your fires burn a long time. But it is a 30-second reload, so keep that in mind. You can't really dish out as many fires as some of the other ships in the game, cruisers mainly. But Nelson is still really good at what it does, just being a bullet sponge for your team, soaking up the damage, and taking the hits that really nobody else can, just because of that stupid heal, which is honestly kind of a gimmick that Wargaming I think came up with. But whatever, it's still I love the ship. It's a fantastic ship. Just again, if you're not already aware, Nelson is a premium ship, so that means that it will cost you some real life money. It comes in at 12,500 doubloons. Which is about $40 to $45. But if you're like me, and you just it occasionally goes on sale, either during the holiday sales or if there's like a new patch with like a British ship on the battle pass, they usually put some of the British ships. Not usually. Sometimes they put some of the British ships, discounted, so that might help with the price. But yeah, that's the HMS Nelson. If you're a fan of British battleships, highly recommend. If you're not, it's still a really good ship to play. I know people that have no other British battleship except Nelson, and they still have a blast in it. So yeah, that's the HMS Nelson.